Italian Wine Podcast. Chin Chin with Italian wine people.
Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast with me, Monty Waldin. My guest today is Alessandro François of the Castello di Querceto winery in Chianti Classico. Welcome. So first question has to be, you have a French-sounding name.
Yes, my family name is French because my ancestor came from Lorraine.
From Lorraine.
In the 18th century, exactly in the 1745, when Tuscany was started to be governed by the Grand Duke of Lorraine. Of course, when the Grand Duke moved from Nancy to Florence, he decided to bring together some of the most important collaborators.
So do you know what your family was doing? Were they lawyers then, or were they advisors to the Duke, or what was their role?
No, my ancestor was only a minister of Grand Duke of Lorraine, but only when he became old, it was called in Vin because in the meantime the Grand Duke of Lorraine married with Maria Teresa di Austria, Asburgo, and they became also not only Grand Duke of Tuscany, but also Imperator of Sacro Romano Impero. And then for this reason he moved to and they lived in Vin. And when my ancestor arrived at the end of his working life, it was called in Vin, and there the Imperator gave to my ancestor the title that they used in this period, the Marquess title.
Oh, so are you a Marquess as well then?
Yes, because I'm of the same family.
A Marchesi?
Yes.
So did your family, has the family estate, the Castello di Querceto, been in your family?
Not immediately, but after 3 generations, my grandfather decided to buy Castello di Querceto because it was very passionate in the agriculture and mainly in the wine field, and he bought this property.
In which year?
In the 1897, 120 years ago.
1897.
And consider that in the Chianti Classico region there are about 600 agricultural companies, but only 21 they have the same owner from more than 100 years. We are one of the 21. And then Castello di Querceto must be considered a really very historical company in the region.
In terms of the way that you work, obviously you talk about history and tradition. As a wine producer, would you describe your wine style as modernist, traditional, or a bit between the two?
At the beginning, my grandfather was very passionate about the wine, and quite frankly, he decided to plant specialized vineyards in the last years of the 19th century, and he planted vineyards with Sangiovese 100% against all the use of this period when everybody was planting vineyards with mixed different varieties according to the blending decided by Bettino Recasoli. But my grandfather planted these vineyards called La Corte, and we still produce La Corte like a single vineyard wine, but the reason was that he wanted to produce a wine to drink for his family because everybody was selling only wine with the blending of Bettino Recasoli. And then we are very happy now and very lucky because we have a collection of the wine produced from La Corte vineyards, and when we celebrate the century of the property 20 years ago, we organized a vertical testing of the wine from these vineyards, and we tested 60 different vintages covering 90 years of story. And it was fantastic, and many very important journalists of that time, they wrote some article where they described the testing note of this vertical testing. Among 16 vintages, the oldest one was 93 years old. We found 12 still perfect, and everybody was very astonished about this. So and the oldest one, 93 years old, was one of the best.
So you're talking about tradition and Sangiovese, which is the grape that's synonymous with Tuscan wine in general and Chianti Classico in particular. What about the arrival of French grapes from Bordeaux?
Well, after I started to be involved in this family business, it means about 35 years ago, I liked to do many experiments because I like to do experiment. And I planted many international varieties, but we decided to continue to use in our Chianti Classico only traditional varieties. We don't use our Chianti Classico has 95% of Sangiovese about, and a small percentage of all traditional grapes of the valley, like Canaiolo, Colorino, Mammolo, Ciliegiolo, Malvasia Nera, but no international variety. We produce 4-5 wines with international variety, but I don't use Chianti. I don't call Chianti Classico them. They are the wine that everybody in the world is calling Super Tuscan, and now they are officially IGT from Colli della Toscana Centrale.
Do your clients tell you that they prefer the traditional varieties, Sangiovese and the ones that you mentioned, over the international varieties, over Merlot or Cabernet? Is there a division in what people say?
Of course, they are. It's difficult to tell if it's. I prefer one on the other, because in the wine field, every wine has its personality, its character. Every wine produces different emotion to the people that taste them. I'm not able to answer if I prefer one on the other. They are different wine. The hardest question I have received that many people give to me is, what is the wine you prefer? I have different emotion when I taste one. Maybe Cignale is one our Super Tuscan wine.
So what's the blend for Cignale then?
Cignale it's a Bordelais blending. It's 80% of Cabernet Sauvignon, 20% of Merlot.
And what is, in terms of your traditional Chianti Classico, you have all the local grapes in that, like Canaiolo, you mentioned them.
Yes,
so
yes.
What, if you just tell me the names of these native grapes and some of the dominant flavors in them? Obviously Sangiovese plus Malvasia Nera, Canaiolo.
Quite frankly, in my opinion, perhaps that Chianti Classico should be produced only with Sangiovese. But I don't want to lose this traditional variety, and then we continue to have a very small area with Canaiolo, with Colorino, and we continue to use, but a very small percentage.
How are you dealing with climate change?
Well, for us, I think until now it's good, this changement, because our valley is at a high elevation above the sea. Our vineyard is between 400 to 550 meters above the sea level. That means that maybe if you had in the past some problem was because it was not enough hot. For the moment, for us is favorable this change. I don't know what will happen in the future, of course.
So who's going to succeed you in your family? Is it going to be a family succession when you retire? Who's going to succeed you?
Well, I consider me very lucky, because without ask anything to my son, my daughter, everybody decided to work in the company. Not only my son and my daughter, but the wife of my son, the husband of my daughter, everybody work in the company. And then, of course, I consider that it's not often happen this.
Just the names of your son and your daughter? What are they called?
My son is Simone, my daughter is Lia, the wife of my son is Stefania, the husband of my daughter is Marco.
So between your son and your daughter, who does the vineyards and who does the winemaking?
The winemaker was made by me for a long time. Also, if I never study enology, but I was autodidact on the enologist, because I started to be involved in this family business because I had a big passion. My profession before was completely different.
What was that?
I lived in Milan. I worked in the engineering field, and in the middle of my life, I decided to start a new life. And then when I was 45 years, I abandoned my profession. I moved to Castello di Querceto, and because of the big passion, I wanted to be in first line. And then I started to make the enologist for a long time. Of course, now I have an enologist in the company, because the majority of my time now is traveling around the world to explain to all the people in the world what is the emotion that my wine can produce.
And if talking about wine doesn't work out, you'd be an excellent history teacher telling us about Napoleon and the French history in Tuscany. Alessandro François, thank you very much for coming in. I hope to see you at Castello di Querceto sometime in the future.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks.
Follow us at Italian Wine Podcast on Facebook.